Hello, we're here today talking to Dindy Vaughan, OAN, about her life experiences in music, and in particular the work of hers called The Discovery, a Choral Symphony. So, welcome, Dindy.
Thank you.
I read when you sent me this information, this quote: "My music is deeply bound to country, culture, and community."
Yes.
And I think that really does sum up a lot of, if you look at your list of works, it sort of sums it up quite neatly. So let's delve into that a bit more. So what is it about country and culture and community that gravitates you to write your music that way?
I hear the music in my head, and I hear it from the environment around me, but it's also, of course, part of an Aboriginal attitude. That is very important, that you can't just separate things out, you must keep them combined.
So your list of works have a lot of environmental backdrops to them.
Yes.
So that's obviously an important part of your creative output, yes?
Yes. Yes. I grew up in a small bush town, and we've got two parks there. One on the east side, the National Park, and the second side, the Tharawal National Park. And the Tharawal is the name of the people from this area. And we just lived in the bush as kids. That was what we did, and you spent all your time there. So we had very, very, very big exposure to all of that, and that kept us.
And that's resonated with you
Yes.
ever since, really?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, the work that we're looking at fits squarely into that environmental situation, yeah. And I think it's a good work that we discuss. It's called Discovery, a Choral Symphony celebrating the Great Southwest Walk.
Yes.
So before we get into talking about the piece, what is the Great Southwest Walk?
Oh, it's a magnificent walk. It's about 250 kilometres long, and it was something that I had done. I was a mad bushwalker, and I had done a lot of it already. And I was asked by one of the people who'd been building, because it was built by the local people, and we had a supper one evening after we'd had a performance of some other stuff of mine, and this chap said to me, "Have you ever heard of the Great Southwest Walk?" I said, "Oh, yes, it's a great walk. I've done it." And he said to me, "Would you like to write a symphony for it?" And I nearly fell through the floor and said, "Yes, please."
What a tough. Can you just, let's backtrack a little. What is the Great Southwest Walk? Where is it, and what is it? And where is it?
It's in Portland.
Yes.
And it goes west from there, quite a long way west, and it turns about, I forgot the name of it. Never mind. It turns back and comes along Discovery Bay, and then it goes east from there. So it's a very long walk.
Yeah, well, over 200k.
Yeah.
Yes. So what is with over 200 kilometres of walk? You do a lot of there must be a lot of environment, a lot of landscape changes. If someone was to walk down this today with you, what would you be seeing?
Well, if you started in Portland, that would probably the first thing you'd do would be the one we're talking about, the Cambobina Forest, and it's a magnificent forest. And from there, you go on and you hit the river. You come into the Gurrel River and follow that to the sea, and then at the sea, you turn, so as it were, back again and come along a long, long walk all day along Discovery Bay.
So along the sea?
Sounds wonderful. It's awful. It's the sound, you sink into the sand all the way and you nearly get blown over by the wind. Anyway, and then you end up coming back through that and through bushland again, and Portland, then you go the other way, which is again different sea cliffs and all sorts of things the other way as well.
So I think that's encapsulated in this four movement piece,
Yeah.
the symphony. The first movement is Sea Cliffs,
Yes.
which I think you've mentioned. The second is the sea, which you've mentioned. The third is the forest, which you've mentioned. And then the fourth is the Glenelg River.
Yes.
Yes. So I think you've encapsulated a lot of the aspects of the walk
Yes.
in there. They're the main parameters, I would have thought,
Yes.
for the walk. So the work itself was commissioned by Music Glenelg,
Yes.
and I think it was premiered in Portland and also given a performance in Melbourne.
That's
so
right. Yes.
Yes. So when was the premieres?
Oh, 2006, I think.
Right, around that period of time. Yes. Okay. So what's it scored for?
Well, full orchestra and the combined choir.
So a mixed SATB choir.
Yes, and I had to be very careful with that because some of them were, you know, they were okay as singers, but they weren't, you know, brilliant. So I had to be very careful how I set the choral part. But
So it was more community based you were
Yes.
thinking of, yes.
yes, yes, and I did, in the beginning, I set some music for the choir and they sang it and it was clear it was far too easy. So then I did some that was more difficult. I did one moderately difficult, one very difficult. And the moderately difficult one, that was the one that I used.
All right, so you tested the waters before you moved any
yes.
further.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I've had this huge amount working with choirs over my life. So yeah,
So you know how it all
I knew I didn't
how to operate.
I knew what goes wrong.
Okay. So let's hone in on the work we want to do, which is the third movement, which
Yeah.
is the forest.
Yes.
So let's explain what this forest is. You mentioned it just before. So let's talk about the forest and how that's replicated into your music.
Yes, it's absolutely superb forest, and it was. I was wanting to. Well, I was told to bushwalk. I was suggested I bushwalk, and I was very keen to because I haven't been to it. And I went down to Portland, and I was supposed to have someone walking with me, but that person didn't want. It turned out didn't want to walk with me, but so I actually got the great pleasure of walking through by myself, which is very much what you don't do if you're a bushwalker. But that person was waiting for me at various spots. So I thought, okay, so if I don't turn up, they'll know more or less where I am. So I did that. It's an untouched forest. It's never been taken down, so it's very, very early forestry. Huge trees, magnificent.
So how did you replicate this sense of grandeur, environmental grandeur or landscape grandeur into the piece itself?
If you notice in that piece, in the first movement there's a Aboriginal song, Ulilay, and that is very much in line with a lot of the early music I've worked with, very early music I've worked with. So it was very much replicated in the whole part of the music. That it was, if you listen, you get this constant reference to very early music from, from ours, from Whitefellow Society as well. So that was, and that Ukulele song in the first movement is repeated throughout the symphony in some form or another.
And it is there in the forest movement?
Yes.
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 And the forest movement has a text by you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I did all the texts for it, partly because I knew the walk, but also because when you write music, when you write other people's words, you get into trouble constantly. So I write my own.
That saved a lot of copyright hassles.
Oh, all sorts of things, yes.
So we're going to listen to this piece. It was conducted by Andrew Wales with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, the Box Hill Chorale and other choirs from the Western Districts will be hearing the third movement, The Forest, from Discovery, a choral symphony celebrating the Great Southwest Walk, written by Dindy Vaughan, OAM. Thank you, Dindy, very much for your time.
Thank you, Joe.
Enjoy.